Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to the Sunday night Q&A. This is Behind the Steel Curtain editor Dave Schofield, and I am with you with my mate from the future. It is from the Touchdown Under. We have Marky D. This is the first time the two of us have ever done a show, just us. I'm so excited about this. Mark, I was going to ask how you're doing this evening, but I guess you should say, how's your Monday morning going?
It's pretty good. It's kind of crazy. Like it's 11 a.m. And I guess I'm one half of the Touchdown Under on. I think we do that. It's so okay. Look, I can't figure out the dates. So what do we know? It's your Sunday.
It's our Sunday evening right now.
My Monday. We do that on Saturday, which is your Friday.
Yep.
It gets me every time. And you know what? This season too, the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing at 1 p.m. and have like a million games.
Yes.
And I will be getting up at 3 a.m. every time. Like,
wow.
There's only, I think there are more 1 p.m. games than there are 4 p.m. games or something.
Oh, like that. Yeah. There's only, I'm trying to think, is there only one 4 p.m. game, if that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the 5 primetime games like you always get with the Steelers. But I'm trying to look it up here right now, but I'm trying to think that it's very limited with the 4 o'clock games.
So
every 1 p.m. games, which are great.
Is just every 1 p.m. game is just 3 a.m. for me or 4 a.m. So that's a problem, but it's something I've done all my life is wake up. And sometimes I don't even go to bed. Like I want to go to bed week 1. Like I'll be up at 12 a.m. or 11 a.m. going, I should sleep. And then 4 hours later, there's a game on. You think I'm going to sleep before week 1 away at Bengals?
No. And honestly, other than the preseason, there are no 4 o'clock games. Unless week 18, that it's not scheduled yet. It could be Saturday or Sunday against the Browns. It could be any of those times in there, and they could flex one of those games. I mean, it's not a full flex, but they could bump it to the national game. But right now, the Steelers, it's a lot of 1 o'clock games. So the only 4 o'clock game, technically it's 4:30, is the 3rd preseason game. Wow. That's it, and everything for this season. So that's interesting because man, oh man, I not to complain, but back in 2019, I went to 4 games. The earliest one was a 4:15. All the rest, I went to 1 4:15 kickoff. All the rest of them, I went to a preseason game that was 7:30. 2 primetime games. It was miserable.
I got one argument, and it's not even a question; it's more of a statement, right? I have a big problem with like you guys saying, "Oh, we don't want to go out to Christmas Day and or Christmas Eve and watch the Raiders." That would be the best game for me to watch ever.
Well, because that's going to be what at like 11 a.m. Christmas.
No, I'm talking if I was coming over to Pittsburgh, like
if you're coming to Pittsburgh
as a single guy with no family, and
absolutely
just for the love of the Pittsburgh Steelers, that would be the best game on the whole season. Is it Christmas Eve? That's my birthday, by the way, in America too. And then going into Christmas, that'd be the best time. And then a lot of you blokes are always like, oh, but we've got to ride and I've got to do this. I'm going to drive home. I'd be like, man, I would just stay there. I would just camp outside and just, is there a big tree in Pittsburgh, the Christmas tree? I'll go sleep under that. I don't care. That to me would be the number one game, I think, as a spectacle is Steelers versus Raiders. If it means something, that to me is like probably one of the best games all year. To
see, to me, it takes away from the family because my parents come in for Christmas. My, I have little kids and everything. So I'm like, couldn't be in Pittsburgh until 11 something. I couldn't be getting home at 5 a.m. from the game like I did when I went to when I had to spoon with Dad at the what was that? The Bills game in 2019. But that was because we were driving home in a snowstorm as well. But I'm like, I can't be getting home at that time. That's when I get up on Christmas Eve with the kids. So, we have traditions and things like that we do on Christmas Eve that's going to kind of throw a wrench into. But, it is what it is. But there's no way I could attend that game in my situation. But if I wasn't in my situation, I would love to.
But even for me being here in Australia and for Maddie as well, so that Christmas Eve game will be on our Christmas Day.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything better. Waking up, buying myself a new jersey because no one else will, right? Mm-hmm. Open the new jersey, wear that. 12 p.m. comes around, crack a few beers. Hopefully I'm not too hungover from my birthday before. Crack beers, watch the Steelers, beat the Raiders on Christmas Day. And we have like family stuff too. Like we do family stuff during the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone just goes and does their own thing because they're all pretty tired and stuff like that. And a lot of my friends, I see some of my friends, but sometimes they're way too busy seeing everyone else. So I'm like, it's a free day. I'm just going to watch the Steelers like a big screen TV and zone out. And it's Christmas Day for me to watch the Steelers play. That to me is just fantastic.
Yeah. See, when it came to that weekend, I was like, all right. Now we're going to get to questions. I'm ready for you all to fire them away in the live chat. This is what this is supposed to be all about. But now we're talking about this game that was coming on with Christmas being on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, most of the games are on Saturday. I was looking at that, I'm like, the best time for the Steelers for me would have been if that was their Thursday game.
Right.
If it would have been their Thursday game, I would have been really happy with that because it would actually be more convenient to be on Thursday than less convenient for me. Then the next best one would have been Monday night. Then the next best to me would have been probably Christmas primetime. Then Christmas at 4, then Christmas Eve at 1. But to me, the worst times would have been Christmas at 1 and Christmas Eve at 4:30 probably would have been tied. But the absolute worst was the prime time on Christmas Eve, just because of trying to get everything else done and ready and all that with Christmas. But I don't expect everyone to be in the same boat as me. If I was someone who traveled to Pittsburgh because that's where my family was, my goodness, we should all go to the game. That's what I'd be doing. But that's just, to each their own. And that's why I'm like, oh man, is anyone going to want to go to that game? I put my tickets up for sale. Boom, they were gone. I'm like, good. People want to go to that game.
I went to the Steelers versus Ravens Christmas Day game, and that was absolutely amazing. And like with my story there, I stood around for half an hour to soak it all in. And yes, it was my first game, but we heard 2 Renegades. We won the division. And there was something special about it. And I know it's hard for families and stuff like that, but as a pure, just a fan base or as a Steelers fan, you're like, it's amazing to be there on Christmas Day. And I was working a bad job, like washing dishes. I didn't want to wash dishes. So I said, you know what? I'm going. I'm going to go hang out with my family. I'm going to hang out with 64,000 people wearing the black and gold. And it was just the best thing ever. Best thing ever.
Yeah. And that one, I loved watching that game. To me, that was perfect. That was 4:30 Christmas Day, get everything done with Christmas. My parents had come to visit. They had gone on to my sister's. My son, I'm trying to think, how old would he have been? How many years ago was that? That was before I was with BTSC. So that had to be what? Like, was that 2016 or 2017? When was that?
2016 season.
Yeah, 2016 season. Yeah. And so, I mean, my goodness, we're talking 6 years ago. So my son was 5 or 6. He was sitting, I was watching by myself. Except my son was down in the room putting together his Legos that he got for Christmas. So he's just sitting there churning out Legos. I'm watching the game. All of a sudden, I'm up, I'm pacing, I'm jumping all over. I am screaming. I will never forget that game. And I wasn't there, but I had season tickets, and I sold them to someone that I knew. That it was just him and his wife. They didn't have kids. They're like, oh, what a great trip. Let's go to Pittsburgh for Christmas. And they did it. And it was the most amazing experience for them. So trust me. Where were you sitting?
I was sitting like behind the coach's bench or the Steelers bench, right?
Okay.
Around the 50 or 40. How do I explain it? I guess, the home side and the good seats are like mid-level. About 20 rows back or 25 rows back. Cost me about $400 or like USD, but I was like, meh, I don't care.
Yeah.
Money's money.
Hey, I mean, you were in the US to watch the Steelers. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. So here we go. Here we got a question. This is from Steelers Freak. He says, everything I see and hear about Daniels makes me wonder if he would be better at center. He has played the position before and played with Mitch. Could he be QB2 on the field and anchor the whole line? What would you think of them having Daniels at center?
Well, immediately I would think, why would they bring in Mason Cole if they wanted to move him to center? But could Mason Cole then play guard? I just personally, I like what Daniels is doing for our organization already. I think he's so well spoken, such a confident guy, and I think he's ready to win. I think he's ready to lead this offense, and we need that physical power that he can bring. But also to be versatile as well in any offense or offensive line, because we know that people get injured all the time. So if they know how to play different positions, why not? It helps out the offense.
Yeah.
Because in some years, I think it was like the Chargers or some teams can do 20 different variations of the line.
Yeah.
And we don't want to see that. We want to have a cohesive unit. But if it does happen, if they can play at center, fantastic. I just want to see them like I was watching back in the old days with Alan Faneca and those guys, how they pushed off the line and already had 3 or 4 yards separation of handling that defensive guy, push him all the way back and gave room for the running backs to run around. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, and honestly, if you're looking at it really being kind of, 4 dogs, 3 bones, can we say it that way? But did you kind of have 4 main guys fighting out for the 3 interior offensive line positions? If you're looking at James Daniels, I mean, some people are more locked in than others, but James Daniels, Kevin Dotson, Kendrick Green, Mason Cole, those are the 4. The only one who can't, or not that can't, but hasn't played center is Dotson. Really, any of them, Daniels did it in college. He did a little bit.
It's because he crushed the ball.
Yeah.
If he held the ball in his hands, he crushed it. Like it looked like a little peanut in his hands.
But you also got to look at, you're like, oh, it's really important for the Steelers to have that center. It's really important for them to have that right guard too. I mean, think about that. David DeCastro held that down for a long time. It's not like it's a lesser position. I see what you're saying there, Steelers freak. I just don't know that that's what the Steelers would do. And part of the reason I say that is, to me, if we look at the tackles from last year, and they say, oh, Chuks Okorafor needed to stay at right tackle. To me, that wasn't as much Chuks needing to be on the right as if Dan Moore, if he was going to be the starter in the preseason, he played so much better at left than at right. I really feel Chuks was going to give you similar play either place. Some people might say, oh, he wasn't nearly as good at left. Well, maybe he wasn't, but I tell you what, Dan Moore, left versus right, was a huge difference if you go back, like look at his PFF scores and things like that. And it could have been because he was going against better competition when he was on the right side because of the way the games played out. So that's also kind of tough too. But based on that, it seemed like Chuks wasn't the right tackle because he couldn't play left. He was the right tackle because somebody else, they were stronger at left than they were at right. That could be the same kind of deal when it comes to James Daniels. If Mason Cole ends up being the center, Mason Cole was probably stronger at center than he would be at guard, where Daniels is probably, I have it with my church softball team. I have one player that I could put him anywhere on the field and he would be the best player at that position. I just got to decide where I'm going to put him. So you're like, oh, wow, but what is he best at? He's best at third base. Where do I end up playing him? Left field, because that's where I need him the most. You know what I'm saying? And that could be the same thing with Daniels.
Yeah, sometimes we forget that these guys are just football players. You know, overall, they're a football player, and they're probably jokingly laughing, I can play any position. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you put me, just put me there.
I mean, think about it. Kelvin Beachum had to play center before he was the left tackle. He was just the guy that was the reserve offensive line. When Pouncey went down, he had to come in and play center for a while. So that's just one of those things. So now I'm trying to look for the next question. I should have already had it up here. I know I saw one. I don't want to miss one. And then it skips on me. Okay, here we go. Because I knew the Pittsburgh Owen had a good question there. It says, do we need to sign a vet to replace Tuitt, or is there enough quality depth? I talked about this some on the preview. You want to go? We've all kind of addressed this in different places, but I would like to have this conversation with you now. What do you think?
Because I was so sold on Tuitt coming back.
Yeah.
I was like, and I know he made the decision, and I respect that 100%. But now it's time to move on. And who do we put in that spot? Quality depth is probably a good way to put it. Who would be? Because like starter wise, do you put in Wormley? Do you put in Leal? He's the rookie. Do you go with
Loudermilk?
Loudermilk too. He looks. I do like Loudermilk this year. I think turning to like a mini camp kind of stuff.
Oh, I want to see what he does in the preseason. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do in the preseason,
because he wasn't really talked about too much last year. And this year he's probably obviously all these fellas too. Like you look at Najee's legs, like they just get bigger over the offseason. They're in a program for a reason, right? In a strength and conditioning program to get better. What do you do with Mondo? Does Montravius Adams come into the mix too, and then you move Alualu out there? I don't know if there's a set guy that needs to be there, but because in my mind I was so set on Cameron Hayward, Alualu, and Tuitt. And I was like, oh, it's the dream team. But now with Tuitt retiring, I really don't know who's going to fill that void. And will that be our weakest area, or are we overthinking it? And the Steelers already have it, pieced together, and they're like, it's no worries.
Yeah, and it was always in the back of my mind that I'm like, I could just see it be in the end, whether it was his choice or the Steelers' choice. For some reason, the way they weren't talking, and then I mentioned on the Scobro show that the June 1st was coming up the next day. I'm like, there's just something about that date that's making me scared about the Tuitt situation. And all my worst nightmares came true.
I know, but he never do. Like, it was such a weird storyline we had for the last year or so, because Tuitt never talked to the media.
No.
Like, at all. It was us, our shows, other shows all around the world was like, will Tuitt play? And we didn't know. We didn't know what was going to happen. So, and throughout the season, will he play? And now he never talked to media, and he's going through some stuff, and he's retired. So it's just such a weird feeling. I don't know who's going to fill that void, but what I do like is I know that we have Cameron Hayward, and I know that we have Alualu coming back after the injury. He's not done yet. No. So who's going to step up? Hopefully it can be a Loudermilk, and we go, if we're surprised by someone who does step up in that role and be blown away by their production, I think we're fine, because this defense is, this don't even start.
Yeah, well, see, I have an article coming out probably tomorrow, but unless there's a bunch of other news and it gets bumped, it's about, there was a lot, it's about Tyson Alualu. And the question was that I was bringing up was, everyone had a lot of eggs in the Tuitt basket. Oh, the defensive line get better. You get Alualu, you get Tuitt back. Even if only one of them is what they were in 2020, the Steelers are going to be better. Mm-hmm. Well, now Tuitt's out of the equation. So it's kind of like there's a lot of eggs in the Alualu basket, and he's 35. I had said, I think on the preview, I said I thought he was 34 because I thought he was a year older than Cam Hayward. He has another year experience. He was drafted a year before Cam, but he was already a year older. So he is 35. So I misspoke there. So you could look at it. Well, he only played a game and some more, not even 2 games last year. Maybe his body's rested, or maybe his body is going, I said it right there. Father Time. Maybe Father Time's going to catch up to him. But there seems like there's a lot put on Alualu when it comes to like the hopes of the lines from Steeler fans. And but it's just like, we don't know what to expect, but we didn't know what we were going to expect with Tuitt coming back. Was he going to be the player he was in 2020? Was he just not going to be the same? And honestly, if he knew he wasn't going to be the same and decided to retire, good for him. Good for him. Don't come back and be a shadow of your former self just to do it if your heart's not in it and you're not, and you won't be the same player. So, but maybe he would have been the same player, but his heart just wasn't in it and knew he needed to move on.
Oh,
we answered it. Go ahead.
Yeah, we also saw stuff too with Montravius Adams near the end of the year. I think, in the first few games, I think he struggled a little bit, but in certain spots, I thought he played really well. And the Steelers signed him to a 2-year deal. So I trust what they're doing. I don't think we need to go out and get a flashy guy or a guy on the free agent market to really fill the spot, because, second-year player in Loudermilk and Leal too, these fellas know what's going on. Yeah. And maybe it could be a weak spot on the D-line, but I think overall, like, something just tells me that Cameron Hayward is going to pump these guys up. Like, he's embarrassed, mate. He's embarrassed about what happened last year, being the 32nd best. 140 yards per game is embarrassing to see as a Steelers defense. And it was, no one wanted to tackle. And I can't go out there and do a better job, but honestly, no one wanted to tackle. And this year, going into the first game versus Joey Burrow and Joe Mixon, those fellas, we have to stop those guys in the run and get a chance to at least allow TJ Watt to get around the corner, because he'll be unstoppable. So it's probably the piece now that we don't know who's going to fill that role.
Yeah, if it was me making this decision, you got to remember that Leal was the highest drafted defensive lineman by the Steelers since Javon Hargrave. They hadn't. To me, I consider. I talked about this in the article that's going to be out about top picks. To me, a top pick is a day 1 or day 2 pick. If you're, which makes it rounds 1, 2, or 3. The Steelers, this was an article I had over the weekend. They draft defensive linemen more often than they draft wide receivers when you talk about How many do they do it per year? They've only under Kevin Colbert, there was only three drafts that they didn't take a defensive lineman, where there was 4 drafts they didn't take a wide receiver, but they don't do it at very high. Leal was only the 7th high draft pick when it came to defensive line under Kevin Colbert. So it's a fairly significant investment. But I still think that he was being drafted for the following year, because you don't know if Alualu is going to play after this year. It's his last year under his contract. He's 35, things like that. So to me, if it comes to signing a vet, back to the original question, I would be okay if they try to make a Joe Schobert type move during training camp if needed. Maybe, get the pads on these guys, maybe even get a preseason game under your belt, seeing if Leal was overachieving and going to be ready sooner than what you thought. See if Loudermilk makes a big step. See if Wormley can anchor better on run defense or anything like that. If there's still and you've got to see if Tyson Alualu is going to be himself, be what he was before. And if the answer is, if there's any doubt in any of those, then you can even start scouring things, whether it's a free agent or if you have to give up a late draft pick in order to grab somebody. But at the same time, if you do it now and then all those guys do much better than what you expected, then my goodness, it's great to have a lot of great players there, but you could then also have a Melvin Ingram situation again, where someone's not getting the playing time that you brought in at this point of the year. So I could see them waiting. Boy, we talked about that one a long time, didn't we? But thanks, Bridgeburg. Owen, good question. You knew that was going to talk for a while. Here's just me. She said, is TJ overused? Who do we have as backups?
I don't think he's overused because he's.
I don't want to wait. Are we going to get you started? We don't want a big argument over who's our skipper again.
Nah, hey man, listen. Okay, with Tuitt skipper, literally, with me and Manny had the bash the other day. He's got signed 2 days. For 2 days, and he already wanted him gone. That was my argument. But with Just Me's question, is TJ overused? I don't think he's overused because he's the best player. He's the best player on the defense. Now, overused maybe you're talking about like reps or snaps or something like that. I think you need to put your best player out there. Now, what I would like to put, if I was the coach, if we were winning right into the fourth quarter, take him out. Yeah. If we're up by 20 points, take him out and there's 7 minutes to go. Don't let him snap. You don't need to. He's done his stuff. He's had an impact on the game, and you get him out. Who do we have as backup? Well, you do have Jannard Avery. You have I can never pronounce his name. Number 48,
Tuska.
You have Tuska.
That's what I say. Yeah, I don't know if it's Tuska or Tuska. Who cares?
Tuska. Right now, Jannard Avery is from the Eagles, and I thought he's a pretty big fella. I think he can try and do something. I haven't seen him. But I was just really excited about Skipper coming back and having a chance because of what I saw in 2019. And yes, it was preseason, but the man went off. He got 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. And he looks like he's bigger and better. Yes, he didn't go out and get a team like the New York Giants cutting the Tennessee Titans and Falcons, but that happens in the league all the time. The other bloke we got rid of, Tegray Scales, he was back and forth, right, with the Steelers for 4 or 5 years. And then we cut him about a few days ago. So that is the nature of the beast, I think, in this league. There's what goes from 90 to 53, and the guys on the fringe have to go out there, and he might be a camp guy, but it's still to me, it's open competition for the depth guy or backup behind Highsmith and TJ Watt.
Yeah, and I mean they're going to rotate him. I mean, think about this: TJ Watt, the game that he played the most snaps last season was Week 1 against Buffalo. Now, he was well rested because he did not play a snap of the preseason. And he played 69 snaps, but that was 81% of the Steelers snaps. He played a higher percentage of the snaps in other games. I think he played 90% of the snaps against Chicago, but it was only 56 snaps. So I don't know that he's being overused. The closest way I would say to him being overused is if he's having to play when he's not healthy. If they have to play him a bunch of snaps when he's not healthy. And I felt they had to do that some last year. And you could tell those games when that happened. That's the one thing that I would be concerned with. But you still want outside linebacker depth, but it's something that I've said before in the staff Slack channel is, someone raised the question of, oh man, the Steelers defensive line, if Cam Hayward goes down, they don't have an answer. I'm like, you don't have an answer if TJ Watt goes down. You don't have an answer if Minkah Fitzpatrick goes down. You don't have answers when all pro guys go down. You don't. Because if you did, they would be on the field anyway, because that's how that works. But if they were that good, and anyway, that's why you have good players like that. Okay. So, but you do need to have someone that you can enter into the rotation. You still want to get TJ out there in those key moments, but you've got to have someone that can give him a breather in the middle of a drive or something when they can. Go ahead, Mark.
So I've got a question, but do I need to type it in or just ask you?
You can ask me.
Okay, so I didn't type it in. All right.
You don't have to type it in.
All right. So when we're speaking about TJ, right? This has been bugging me. We can't win playoff games, right? Haven't won a playoff game in 4 times. What does TJ need to do to go out and win a playoff game? Or are the other teams just taking him out of the game? We haven't won a game with him.
You mean a playoff game? Yeah, but do you want to know the truth? How many games did TJ Watt, quote unquote, win for the Steelers last year? They wouldn't even be in the postseason if it wasn't for TJ Watt. He's the one who won Chris Boswell just had to hit a chippy field goal because TJ Watt, he ended the first drive of the Seahawks in overtime. He then on the very next time they got the ball, he stripped it, recovered it, sacked, set up the game winner. Look at the Cleveland game. Type it in anyway, Mark. Look at the Cleveland game. The last Cleveland game. The first 6 drives of the game were, or was it 6 out of 8, I think is what with Jeffrey and I did this article, were ended by TJ Watt, where he ended the drive. So, coming through on third down, doing things. Now, yes, there's 11 players on the field, but TJ Watt is making the big impact plays in key moments that is setting the Steelers up for victory. If it wasn't for TJ Watt, they wouldn't have been in the postseason last year. Well, if it wasn't for TJ Watt, they wouldn't have been in the postseason last year.
Yeah, we saw that too with that Chiefs game as well, with the sack, fumble, and the recovery. I was like,
yeah, I know. He had the touchdown. What more could TJ Watt do in that game? The Kansas City Chiefs had not gone 5 straight drives without scoring all season, unless you look at them unless you count taking a knee as a drive. If you take out kneel downs as a drive, they did not go 5 straight drives without scoring. They went the first 5 drives of that playoff game without scoring.
Yeah.
And the only thing that kept the Steelers in the game was a TJ Watt touchdown. The offense let them down so much that the defense, what more could you have asked for them to start that game? And yet, boom, they were down at halftime.
I was so pumped up. I was like, I think we have a chance.
Yeah, the defense. That game could have been a worse blowout than it was if it wasn't for the defense doing what they did. But they were asked to sustain it too much. There is no way that the Kansas City Chiefs should have had 7 drives in the first half. Now, granted, they had back-to-back drives because the one was a turnover, return for a touchdown, then they had another drive. But still, they shouldn't have had to do that. If all the Steelers had to do was get a couple first downs late in the second quarter, and they don't give the ball back to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That was, and I'm trying to go from memory from a game that I refuse to watch again because I'm still so frustrated about it. But, to me, the defense and specifically TJ Watt was doing everything for that team and set up that team that all they had to do was be adequate to win the game or to be or to roll into halftime feeling good about themselves, and they were just not. They did everything shy of turning the ball over. You know what I'm saying? And then they turned the ball over to start the second half.
Yeah.
I'm ranting.
It fell apart so fast, and I was so excited to see. I'm like, oh, we have a chance to beat the Chiefs. Maybe we can be in this game. But the Chiefs rolled with the punches. They just went through their offense the best way they can and just kept chugging. But yeah, but I think it's a thing where I look at the players now, like Hayward and Minkah and TJ, and I'm like, I think it just feels like we have a chance on this defense to win a playoff game. no matter who we verse, if we are healthy, I think it's a big chance. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So and just look at how they spend their money. This Steelers team is wrapped around the defense, and that's pretty dangerous in today's NFL with the dynamic offenses. But my goodness, I can't believe when you go back and look at the Pittsburgh Steelers 2021 season and the games and the games that they won. I mean, look at this: the Bills 16 points. Okay, the Broncos 19, the Seahawks 20, the Browns 10. I mean, the Bears had one of the higher point totals against them in a game the Steelers won with 27. Then you had the tie at 16. Then you got into some of those games that you lost because they gave up 41 points, but the offense wasn't helping them up. But then look, they beat the Ravens. Why? 19 points. Lost to the Vikings because of the 36. It seems like it was the defense had to do so much. Tennessee 13. Then they gave up 36 to the Chiefs and lost. 14 against the Browns, 13 against the Ravens. You see a common pattern here of about the defense having to keep them in the game. And that's what it was. So if you could just get a little bit more out of your offense, that to me, that's what it comes down to.
That's
go ahead.
That first Browns game was pretty amazing to watch as well, keeping them to 10 points or whatever. They kind of was like a clinic, I think, on defense. But you are right. It's been the defense is just it keeps in the game, but they must be getting tired or frustrated, or because I know as a player, as a person, if you're doing really well at your craft, and then you see, what are you doing? Again, throwing out again.
Well, and you're exactly right, because I'm doing a series right now for the website. I'm sorry that we're going off on this. I want to get to some more questions, but I'm doing a series right now that I want to know the best game of the Steelers of the year. But rather than just ask what's the best game, we're doing a bracket style, and I eliminated all the losses and ties. All the losses and ties are done. How can it be your best game if you didn't win? So it's the 9 wins. So I had to do a play-in game, to get it down to a nice even bracket of 8. So the play-in game was the Seattle game and the Bears game. Those were the 2 play-in games, or those 2 teams that go for and the voting is still there on the article until I think tomorrow evening. I'm not sure if it's tomorrow morning. I got to go adjust that. But when I'm doing these, I'm watching condensed highlights of the game. And I'm doing a complete recap of the game, writing it. And so many times I'm saying, after the Steelers went 3 and out, or after the teams traded 3 and outs. I mean, even in these wins, I look at the time, I'm like, their defense was never given any time to rest. I mean, sustain a drive. Now, I know sometimes you score quick, but that's a little bit uplifting. That can get the adrenaline going. I mean, you don't get adrenaline pumped from a 3 and out. You just don't. And then you're right back on the field again. So the biggest, how am I trying to say this? To me, the thing that was holding back the Steelers defense the most last year wasn't the play of the inside linebackers, wasn't the defensive line. It was the offense. The offense was holding back the defense more than anything last year. There, I said it. Here's a quick question. I'm not going to go into the second part of this because I'm not sure what he's referring to. No offense, Steelers freak, but you asked a great question. Who will wear the green dot? He read Jack played better when not filling that role. Jeff Hartman wrote that about that. And then he said about, I don't know who that was. If who had his way, I'm not sure. That the Pod's truck would be in Bush's apartment today. Who do you think? What do you think they should do with the green dot?
I think it will go to Miles Jack, to be honest. I think it takes a lot of pressure off Devin Bush.
Yeah.
Unless Devin Bush goes to the coach Tomlin and says, mate, I want to wear the green dot and have a discussion. But hopefully it won't distract either player if they don't get it. But I think whoever goes to needs to be the best communicator, on the team to get everyone situated. But also too, I think Minka does that too at the backfield. He's always talking. And I know from memory, in 2008, and I always bring up those guys up. They had such good communication on defense, and even there was a clip the other day of Cameron Sutton talking to their secondary players on Steelers.com, and he was mic'd up, and he was talking about communication. So they need to get set up, because I think sometimes too, their skill level, they're all elite players, but getting in the right spot, knowing who they're going to mark, knowing what's going to happen on certain plays, knowing what they're going to do before they actually run the play. They need to be lined up, and if things switch, then you need to act fast and be ready, because teams can exploit a weak defense that has zero communication. How many times have you seen in the NFL that a guy has no idea what he's doing on the play? He's just running around and they exploit that and they go for a touchdown. Like, it happens all the time. Miscommunication is huge on defense. So, yeah, I would say Miles Jack.
I've got an outside the box suggestion. I'm not saying I think it'll happen, but this is just putting something different out there. Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah, true.
Just putting it out there. Okay, State of the Steelers wants to know if Calvin Austin can make a push for playing time. Who does he take time on the field away from?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Yeah, that here I'm better. I clicked it off real quick. I would leave it up there. That's a good question. So Calvin Austin.
Who would he take? I don't really know, because would he be more of a slot guy? I guess being the third receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a slot guy, but he was playing at Memphis. He's got to think that he's going to be more of a slot guy in the NFL.
Because he's a much smaller dude, and I think he can exploit the middle linebackers and those kind of guys too. So maybe you take time away from, because that's like a two-parter question. First of all, who's going to have that role to be taking the time away? So will it be Pickens or will it be Miles Boykin? That's a great question, Dave. You can answer that one, Dave.
No, I already have Miles Boykin more of I see him more of the James Washington role, maybe not getting a ton of snaps. I could see Calvin Austin. See, it's really tough because when Juju was there, I could see him in the Ray McLeod role. That
it depends.
But and then Pickens, well, but I would say he was in the Juju role, but that I could say the Ray McLeod role before Juju was hurt. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not saying role. I'm thinking of number of snaps.
It depends on the formation.
I don't know how they're going to work that out. I really have no clue.
The formation as well. If you've got Claypool, DJ, and Pickens all going for 1, 2, 3, and depending if they do like a trio set or they do like the Najee in the backfield too, Muth will be in there as well. Yeah. So I kind of think, like, my question to that or answer that is, where does the ball go? That's kind of similar. Does the ball go to Claypool? Does it go to DJ? Does it go to Pickens? Or will it go to Muth or Najee? And then you kind of think, well, maybe he will be the sixth person to get the ball. But in saying that, he's super fast, super quick, getting involved in the offense. Does he do more the end around stuff? I would love to see that. Or I really want to see him. I want to see Austin like versing a linebacker, like, and getting because I think he'd be faster and hopefully his route running ability is good. But that's a great question because I don't know. I don't think the Steelers really know. Well, they're not telling us. Where they're going to play him. But because, like, what do you do with Pickens? Pickens there should hopefully be a good rookie year this year. But I like the idea of move too, and not. I don't want the Steelers to pass the ball too much this year. I want to see Najee run.
Well, I want to see the offensive line get the job done. That's what I want. Bottom line. So, to me, I just think you've got to get creative with your packages. In some packages, you're not going to have, you might not have both Claypool and DJ out there. And that's why you're going to want someone else like an Austin. So I don't know that he's going to take snaps away from anyone. I just think that they need to be creative with their packages. So I'm trying to find the next question because I have a lot of people answering other questions as we go here, which is really what we like to do. So I was trying not to miss one. I don't know if you have one.
I've got one, but it's not in line though.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, wait. Here, I got one. Okay, go ahead. You do that one. And then I got the next
from
one.
Brian Brown says, do you think Canada will actually try and run the ball on the goal line this year? Sneaky shot at Canada.
Well, it's very simple. If the Steelers are not running the ball effectively on the other 95 yards of the field, then it doesn't do any good to try to force the run on the 5-yard line. It really doesn't. This was something. Was I talking to you? And I jumped on after your show Friday night to make sure we were all set up for tonight. And I was trying to remember if this was something I was talking with you and Maddie about. Was the whole notion of when the Steelers when it's 3rd and 6, why are you either throwing at the line of scrimmage or throwing it 15 yards downfield? And I'm like, that's because the defense is set up to not give you that 6 yards. So you either got to throw it over them or throw it shy to try to break something. That's why everyone's like, throw it to the sticks, That's where the defense is set up. Mm-hmm. So the people that don't like Ben Roethlisberger taking the long shot on 3rd and 3, they're like, why don't they throw a 5-yard route? Because the defense is sitting on 5-yard routes. So he thinks he can get that. And yes, it stinks that they don't, and because they were not very good at completing those, that's why it would get so frustrating. That why would you keep doing it? So, but you can't constantly be. It's kind of like the defense all sitting up between the center and guard gap on both sides, and everyone's setting in there, and you're still going to try to run a quarterback sneak. It's like if the defense is totally set up to say, hey, we're not going to let you do this, don't try to do it. I mean,
I can't stand those plays, Dave.
Yeah.
Those ones are so. I would rather give it to the back because most times they don't work. I think the Steelers done a few times where they try and do the QB sneak and it just doesn't work. And you're like, well, as a fan, you're like, why don't you just give it to Najee? At least he had a chance.
Sometimes Steelers fans get so caught up looking at the Steelers and what they're going to run, they don't look at what the defense is stacked up against them.
Yeah, it's true.
So I'm not saying that the Steelers should always take deep shots on 3rd and 3. And I'm not saying they should always throw it a yard behind the line of scrimmage. I'm just saying the defense is making it really hard to get 4 yards. So that's why sometimes you either need to throw it 10 or 1, or, it's the easier completion. Or like, was it you or Matty P that said it, that when you had Mr. 3rd and 5th that could still get open at that range
anytime
because he was that darn good. That's what the difference was. When you had someone that good that could still get open, even though that's what the defense was sitting on like crazy, that made a big difference. So when it comes to actually trying to run the ball on the goal line, I would love for them to do it, but I want them to do it because the run is actually working.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you can't do it, you can't do it on the 25-yard line. What makes a difference that you're going to do it where they know you're going to run at the goal line? So
and if you're like, oh well, it's 1st and goal at the 4, can we get 4 yards and 3 downs? I mean, all you got to do is, if you're taking 3 shots into the end zone, you only have to complete 1 of them when you're passing it. If you don't think you can get the 4 yards and 3 rushes, and how the rest of the game is playing, I mean, to me, you bring in the jumbo package, and if the defense lines, I mean, that's why I love the package of Derek Watt, Chase Claypool, Zach Gentry, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, and then they come in with a super jumbo defense. Go 5 wide. I love that idea, because you got the guys that could do that. Maybe this year Connor Hayward could be someone that does that. So, man, we're taking a lot of time to answer questions, but these are fun. Here, Steelers Chase 46 says, what impact is Brian Flores going to make on the defense? That's the $1 million question.
I reckon huge.
Yeah, to me, it's going to be, hopefully a very good one.
I'm telling you, like in a short answer, huge. There's my Shane for it. Huge. Can't wait.
Okay. Just Me was a follow-up question to hers, and I realized she was typing quick. I got this. Will Skipper and Highsmith do as good this year?
I think so.
Yeah. So, I mean, Skipper's got to make the team. I don't think he's guaranteed to make it, but I don't think he should be cut this week. So it's so funny because the title of the show was talking about OTAs. We haven't had any questions about OTAs, have we? Lots of things. This is a good one, and this is probably going to be our last one that we can get to because we're running out of time. Okay, Sherry Richards says, if we sign another free agent, what position would you sign it at?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Free agent, what position? Yeah, you know what? To spark things up, I would love to see a running back just to make Steelers Nation go crazy, and maybe that could give us a bit of hope, I guess. Without I can't remember who's who in the zoo on the free agent, but surely that would give people like Snell and McFarland like, hey, it's not just you on the team. There's a new guy coming in who might take your spot. That or maybe cornerback or maybe secondary too. I'm not too sure.
You're making sure we understand the accent. You said cornerback, right?
Yeah, cornerback.
Yes. Okay, making sure. Yeah. Didn't want to allow the translation say, "Hey, we need another quarterback in here."
Nah, we've got enough, mate.
Yeah, I think they do too. My answer to that, I love your answer, running back, and I even say the longer you wait, if you're going to bring in a veteran running back, the more that they're going to understand their role. Because right now a running back might be, hey, I want him to come, they might have, I said this in the preview, they might have the whole idea of LeGarrette Blount. Or as you're getting closer to camp or into camp, and some of these guys might not have a job, they're like, I'll come in and play and realize that there might be games that I get some snaps but no carries, and there might be games that I'm going to get 10 or 12. It's all going to depend on other things, that Najee's the man and I'm just need to be there for the support. If they understand that, that's what I would like the biggest signing to be. I mentioned about offensive tackle. The struggle there is you only play two, you don't rotate them. If you bring in somebody else, then what if the two guys you have are great? What if to me, you almost have to feel like you have to get your feet wet on what you have there, but I wouldn't be opposed if they did that one. Corner, to me, you would have to have an upgrade over what you already have. And that's either A, really tough to find, or B, really expensive. So that's why I don't know that would work. So I liked your running back answer. So sorry, I was so caught up in answering it that I didn't see if we had one more. What I'm loving is seeing answers to all our questions. So you know what? We've actually reached our time. OTAs. I'm going to say something about OTAs since the whole thing was about OTAs. Still don't understand what happened where the last 4 disappeared and now this week is minicamp. We've reached out to some people that we know that cover the Steelers that are there at OTAs, and they don't know either. They don't know what happened. So they're like, yeah, that's a big mystery to us too, that all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like they erased a week out of the calendar and just bumped another one forward.
Maybe they just thought, it's all voluntary. No one show up, just thought, okay, we'll have a week off.
Or, I mean, I have seen before that they cut OT, that they only did 2 days of minicamp. If I remember right, that they didn't do as much minicamp because they said, hey, everyone was here and we got everything in. So we weren't going to overwork the guys.
Yeah, well, we have the rookie minicamp as well. They're getting involved in the system. Guys coming back. I think at the moment for me in the OTAs and now it's completed, there's no real drama, I don't think, with this Steelers team with people not showing up. We now know the resolution with Tuitt, and we now know that Deontay Johnson is back. Nothing to me stands out of guys. Yeah. I think they're building that brotherhood again. And that might be because, Big Ben had said, thank you, see you later. And now it's like a more youthful team. And they're building that brotherhood, I think, again, how they used to have it. That's what I see from watching a lot of Steeler videos anyway. Yeah.
So, Mark, to finish up, what do you have going on? Where can everyone find you on Twitter and things like that? Anything you want to plug right now?
I thought you meant today. Like today, I'm probably going to get some lunch.
I got a lunch coming up here.
I haven't had breakfast yet today, so I might get some food. Well, look, to be honest, like I've got my Steel Nation Australia page. I do stuff on that and YouTube. I'm not too much around like the Twitter. I still don't really understand Twitter, to be honest. Like how there's like you do a tweet and then people tweet under that, and it's so confusing how to see people's replies. I just don't get it. Like you'll be tagged in something, and I know I tag stuff with BTSC all the time. I retweet and stuff like that. My following isn't that big; it's like 100 people. But I just don't understand. It's not really an Australian thing, to be honest. Like Twitter isn't like I sit on my phone and I get angry about we got this guy, we don't get that guy. I just don't really understand it. It's like, yeah. But overall, I'm here on BTSC and I do stuff with Maddie with Touchdown Under, and that's super fun. But it's great to be part of the question and answer. But social media stuff, I'll be honest, man, like I'm an old head. Like I like using it, but I also like walking away from it too. And I think we actually do need that as Steelers fans sometimes. We're in June. We appreciate you guys coming here on the live chat and the audio, but sometimes you just need to walk away, and like, who was it? Is it Herm Edwards? Don't press send.
Yeah, don't press send. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I changed something with my Twitter. I still follow, but I have a list of where it's just my top 20 Steelers coverage people that I know are only going to be tweeting about the Steelers and getting my Steelers news and everything like that. I created that list. I don't really go to anything else other than that list anymore. And it's really, because I only want my Steelers news for Twitter. So if people follow me, you'll get my articles and whatnot, but make sure that you are checking out the Steelers Touch Down Under. What you guys are around 5 p.m. 5:30 Pittsburgh time on Fridays.
I don't know when we're on, to be honest. We're here everywhere.
Yeah, you get up on Saturday morning and do a show. That's
I don't even leave this room. I just stay in here the whole week. It's easier that
way. So that way you are ready to go for the show. And make sure you're checking out all the podcasts. Marky D on the Touchdown Under. Matty P also has his own individual show of the War Room. We've got the morning lineup with Jeff 3 days a week with Let's Ride. Jeffrey Benedict on Tuesday. My Stat Geek on Thursday. Great noon lineup of audio stuff. And this was your second YouTube and Facebook Live show on Sunday. Already had Tape Boys earlier today. We've got the 2 on Fridays with you guys and Tony, and then we are every other night except Saturday. You've got a show. I know the Hangover generally runs a little bit earlier on Mondays. Otherwise, they're going off between 8 and 9 p.m. Pittsburgh time with all the rest of them. So, Marky D, I'm sorry we kind of got off on just talking about some of these stuff, but that's why I wanted to do a show with you, because it was so much fun. We can just do it.
What podcasts are, and we're in the off season, so we can talk stuff. And we talked about, I loved it. It was great. Me and Maddie talked about pizza for about 15 minutes a few podcasts back. So that's what podcasts are. They're fun. It's having the conversation about the Steelers and getting everyone involved in the live chat. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a good time.
Exactly. I hope the live chat enjoyed that. This was here for you guys. And, we got to send it off the right way. What do we say to send off these podcasts?
Go Steelers.